Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're setting the stage for what is, honestly, a real-life geopolitical thriller. We're going to be talking about the single most dangerous teenager in antiquity. So get ready to rethink basically everything you thought you knew about the fall of the Roman Republic and the bloody birth of an empire.
Now, we're usually taught that the rise of Augustus Caesar and the creation of a very Western-focused Roman Empire was just totally inevitable. It was always going to happen that way. But what if it wasn't? What if the Roman Empire was actually meant to be a massive Greco-Egyptian superstate? Today, we're diving into this incredible alternate reality that almost came to pass, and we're looking at the one boy who stood at the absolute center of it all.
You know, it really all boils down to this one chilling piece of philosophy. It is not a good thing to have many Caesars. That advice was given to the philosopher Arius Didymus, to the man who would become the Emperor Augustus, and it was exactly that cold, ruthless, pragmatic logic that ended up dictating the wildly bloody resolution of the Julian succession.
So here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the geopolitical anomaly. Number 2, ideology, blood versus adoption. Number 3, the donations of Alexandria. 4, propaganda and Actium's fall. 5, betrayal and quiet execution. And finally, number 6, we'll look at our what-if scenario, the Alexandrine Peace.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the geopolitical anomaly.
We really need to understand exactly who this boy was, because his very existence created an absolute paradox for the ancient world. Meet Ptolemy XV. He was known to the whispering crowds back in Rome as Caesarion, or Little Caesar. Born in 47 BC, he was the unacknowledged biological son of Julius Caesar and the Egyptian queen Cleopatra VII. And guys, he was a walking geopolitical anomaly. Think about it. In the East, by ancient law, he's a divine pharaoh. But in the West, by Roman custom, he's illegitimate and an incredibly dangerous threat to the status quo.
And this setup creates an irreconcilable conflict. It's a clash of blood versus ink. On one side, you have Ptolemaic legitimacy, which is based entirely on divine right, an actual biological bloodline to Caesar, and backed by immense Eastern wealth. On the flip side, Roman legitimacy is rounded in legal adoption, Senate approval, and Western Republican tradition. So, Caesarion's sheer biological reality was a direct existential threat to Octavian's legal fiction as Caesar's adopted heir.
Which brings us to Section 2, ideology, blood versus adoption.
Now, this ideological clash didn't stay theoretical for very long. It rapidly escalated into a global Cold War. Historians sometimes call this the tightening of the Syrian knot. Just track how fast this moves. In 37 and 36 BC, Cleopatra introduces double dating on coins to signal a new era of shared power. By 34 BC, massive ideological red lines are crossed at the donations of Alexandria. By 32 BC, Octavian officially declares war, and just a year later, in 31 BC, it all explodes into full-blown naval warfare at the Battle of Actium. The speed of this escalation is just wild.
Let's look closer at Section 3, the donations of Alexandria.
This event was the inciting incident. It made a violent collision completely unavoidable. In 34 BC, the Roman general Mark Antony holds this lavish, over-the-top ceremony in Egypt, and he officially declares Caesarion the true heir of Julius Caesar. He even elevates this teenager to the literally unprecedented title of King of Kings. This wasn't just some local political posturing. This was the deliberate creation of a multipolar world meant to directly rival Rome. It was an absolute head-on assault against Octavian's carefully crafted brand as Caesar's one and only son.
Moving to Section 4, propaganda and Actium's fall.
Octavian was smart. He knew he couldn't just wage a straightforward war against a popular Roman hero like Mark Antony. He had to completely destroy Caesarion and Cleopatra's legitimacy first. So, he expertly weaponized Roman xenophobia. The historian Cassius Dio recorded Octavian urging the public with these words, "Let no one count him a Roman, but rather an Egyptian." He completely reframed the conflict. This wasn't a messy civil war. No, this was a holy defense of traditional republican values against an alien, degenerate East.
To pull this off, Octavian built a highly specific, highly effective misinformation machine. Actually, he had Caesar's old friend Oppius publish what we would today call a literal fake news pamphlet, attempting to scientifically deny that Caesar was the father. He spread these terrifying rumors that Antony and Cleopatra were planning to pack up and move the empire's capital from Rome to Egypt. He constantly harped on their un-Roman worship of the goddess Isis. And legally, he framed Caesarion as the illegitimate product of a prohibited union. He built an impenetrable legal and social firewall around the Julian name.
And all of that propaganda finally erupted into actual physical combat in 31 BC at the Battle of Actium. Now, tactically speaking, this was a massive mismatch. Antony and Cleopatra showed up with this huge fleet, massive, heavily fortified ships built for pure intimidation and power. But they were incredibly sluggish. Octavian's forces, led by his brilliant general Agrippa, brought smaller, highly maneuverable ships. Their entire strategy was based on speed and tactics, and speed won. Antony and Cleopatra's massive fleet was completely devastated, and they had to flee for their lives back to Egypt.
Which brings us to Section 5, Betrayal and Quiet Execution.
With the naval battle lost, the scope of the story shrinks down from global warfare to a desperate, heartbreaking bid for survival. Cleopatra knew Octavian. She knew he would never, ever let Caesar's biological son live. So she put together this brilliant but ultimately doomed contingency plan. The idea was to send Caesarion south along the Nile to the city of Coptos, then have him cross the blistering eastern desert to the Red Sea port of Berenice. From there, the plan was to catch the monsoon winds and sail all the way to India. She was trying to use these sophisticated trade routes to smuggle her son into a wealthy exile far out of Roman reach.
But tragically, he never even made it to the water. His own tutor, a man named Rawdon, committed a devastating internal betrayal. When word reached them that Cleopatra and Antony had died by suicide, Rawdon manipulated the 17-year-old prince. He falsely promised Caesarion that his cousin Octavian was going to grant him a full pardon and place him on the Egyptian throne. Believing he was walking back into his royal inheritance, Caesarion abandoned the escape route, turned around and walked right into a Roman trap.
It was 30 BC. In August of that year, Octavian ordered the quiet, entirely unspectacular execution of this 17-year-old boy. There was no grand public triumph. Octavian couldn't risk making him a martyr. His death was the brutal, definitive end of the Ptolemaic line, but it was also the singular birth of the Roman Empire. The blood of Caesarion literally served as the cement for Octavian's brand new world.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, What If? Alexandrine Peace. We know history is written by the victors, but I want you to imagine an alternate reality for a second. What if that escape to India had actually succeeded? What if Caesarion survived to claim his dual inheritance? What if, instead of the West conquering the East, the two halves had merged?
In that scenario, we would have likely seen a true Alexandrine peace, and that represents a massive geopolitical paradigm shift. Alexandria could have become a true secondary capital, shifting the empire's center of gravity centuries before Constantinople ever did. We'd likely see the total integration of Indian Ocean trade networks, transforming Rome from a land-conquering military power into a maritime mercantile one. You'd have this deep cultural synthesis of Greco, Egyptian, and Roman traditions. And even if he had just stayed hidden away in India, Caesarion could have emerged as a hugely powerful pretender at the Kashan court, backed by boundless Ptolemaic gold.
Basically, a surviving Caesarion would have been a geopolitical ghost. As long as that boy drew breath, the Julian brand would be split. Literally any disgruntled Roman general or ambitious senator could have rallied an army around the true biological son of Julius Caesar. That would have forced Augustus into a perpetual, exhausting Cold War in the East, one that could have completely bankrupted his new empire.
So I wanted to leave you with this final provocative thought. Was the entire 2,000-year legacy of the Roman Empire, the Pax Romana, the foundation of the Western world as we know it, was all of it entirely dependent on the murder of a single teenager? It's a pretty stark reminder of the ruthless logic of power and the true hidden price of building the empire. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it gave you a totally new perspective on history. Until next time, keep learning.